Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Oh,
Yes, I can.
okay, good afternoon. Hello, do we have other speakers here? Hello?
Hello. Hello.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Please, we are
Good
waiting
afternoon.
for a few of our panelists to join. We'll soon start, please. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Okay, I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you very loud and clear.
All right. Thank you very much
How are
for
you?
joining. I'm great. And you? Long time.
Yes, sir.
I think maybe because of the change in timing, our panelists time is adjust the time as well. But I think we should start. Join us as quickly as possible. So I want to first of all welcome us to
Remy, you sound a bit muffled though.
Is it better now?
Yes, thank you.
All right. So I think we have to talk.
Hello, is it just me? I can't hear Remy.
Yeah, I think Remy's.
Hello, Mayoga.
He sounds a
Mayoga,
bit muffled. Olushola, your feet. We are seeing your feet too. Not your face.
Thanks for that. I'm using the 5G technology. Hold on. Oh.
Okay, let's wait a little.
I will sort that out.
Oh, okay. Oh, Wole is also here. Oh, yeah,
Yes, good. Yeah.
Does that help? Does that work?
Yes, yes. Fine.
We can't see you. We can't see you.
Can't see who? Me?
Yep, we can see you.
We can't see you.
I thought you could see me. I thought you said you could see me.
Started out with your foot. Now you took out your foot. We can't see you at all. Now you're gone. Hello, Ronke.
Right.
Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Keeping safe.
That is the bottom line, keeping safe.
Okay. Let me welcome all of us to this session on infrastructure. It is a great pleasure to welcome us all to this session.
Remy, there's something that's happening with your audio. You know, it's faint.
We were able to hear you earlier on when it all started, but for some reason now it's sort of like on faint.
Is it better now?
Yes, it is.
But I tried to make it stable, yeah. Okay. So like I said, this section is on internet that works for all, basically focusing on infrastructure. I will be a moderator for this section. We are lucky to have these speakers who form part of our panel. So that includes Nicola Senyola, who is currently the National Coordinator
Now, Remy, I know they hear.
Remy, can you hear me? Because
yes, I can hear you.
We can barely hear you. And
exactly.
That's better. Whatever you're doing, just keep it that way.
Let me just hold on to the mic.
Just a technical check. I hope you can see my face and not my lovely feet.
You can see part of your face.
Yes, we can see you now, sir.
Is it better? It must be the big glasses.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
good
excellent.
afternoon. So while
Okay,
we wait for Emeka, Emeka is the only person in our panelist. I'm sure he's going to join us shortly.
okay.
We also have Emeka is actually maybe when he comes, I will introduce him properly. But for now, we have Oyeronke Oyetunde, who is the General Manager, Regulatory Affairs for MTN Group. She was also former NIG president. NIG president. NIG is internet group. While we also have Wole Abu, CEO of British Telecom Nigeria, Africa Data Center. Wole, welcome and congratulations on your new post. The last time I heard about you, I think it was at Airtel.
Yeah,
So you're welcome.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Remy.
so, as we know, usually when we talk about the internet, we have been told often that internet is the network of networks. So internet infrastructure basically is the physical hardware, which I'm sure all of us know, enables our transmission media and software used to interconnect computers and users in the internet. And then the internet infrastructure is also responsible for hosting, storing, processing, and serving the information that makes up website applications and content and apps. So on this note, I would like to welcome all of us once again, and I'm sure we are all keeping safe in this of COVID era. That's why we're here. So welcome once again. I will, at this point, like to ask, I don't know if we would like to chip in things on our introductory, we'd like to expand it, but then because we started late, I will more or less prefer that we go direct to our mission for the day. That is to ask our lead presenter, Mr. Olushola Teniola, who is the National Coordinator Alliance for Affordable Internet, to speak to us. And then we'll cascade down to proper discussion. I hope that Emeka will join us sooner. Mr. Teniola, sir.
Thank you very much, Remy, the moderator, to my co-panelists. I think we know each other. And to those that have decided to join this stream or session 2, being about the internet and with a focus on infrastructure. At the Alliance for Affordable Internet, where I'm the National Coordinator for Nigeria, we find that affordability, accessibility, and availability, the 3 A's as we like to call them, are very poignant and very key and dear to our hearts. And the area of recent that we've really focused as a coalition over the last 18 months has been around this concern around digital divide. And it really started with us trying to address and trying to see how we can actually harness the growth in infrastructure that we are witnessing in the continent, especially the countries of focus. And in our case, in the Alliance for Affordable Internet, we focus on 65 LDC countries, to which Nigeria is one, and there are a few other countries like Ghana, etc., in Africa and in Latin America and in the Far East. And the area of focus has been, how do we create a framework, a rural broadband policy framework, connecting the unconnected? And we came up with a framework which was sponsored and promoted by one of our member companies, Facebook, and actually launched it in London in February 2020, just before the lockdown, the COVID-19 lockdown. So I wanted to share this as a point of discussion because it's really a 1.5 pager, and I was told I should just present 1 page. So I just obviously extended it to 1.5 pages for our discussion. So I'll go through this very briefly within the time allocated. So the Rural Broadband Policy Framework, we call it RBPF, aims to provide guidance to address the persistent digital divide with a focus on the context and challenges faced in rural areas. When we developed the broadband policy framework, we have 6 areas. One, that the broadband policy should improve the availability of high quality, affordable broadband and services in underserved rural areas. I must also emphasize there that there should also be a unserved. Rural broadband policy should draw from real world experience, locally, regionally, and globally. Rural broadband policy should harness the resources and capabilities of the private sector and complementary providers such as community networks. Fourth, rural broadband policy should be comprehensive. 5, rural broadband policies and all broadband policies must be gender responsive. Effective, and the 6th one is the effective implementation will require evidence and standards. Internet will be defined, broadband speeds and relevant devices. And the key area of focus here was we really found that the affordability of smartphone devices was an inhibitor to the usage of the internet, especially where there is evident coverage. And that's one of the key findings there. The policymaker process should encourage broad participation, and obviously the policy should. Okay, they're saying they can't hear me. Can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear
Someone
you.
said
I can hear you loud.
Okay, something popped up on my screen, said they couldn't hear me. So I'm just making sure
Yes,
it's not they're not the only person.
well.
I will continue, sorry.
Continue,
The
just to be
policy
recorded, please.
Okay, the policy making process should be transparent, and the policy process should also allow stakeholders to meaningfully participate. Some of the elements of the rural broadband policy framework are: A, harness market competition whilst addressing market failures; B, streamlining regulatory processes; C, invest and improve public access, and in this case, TV white space, Wi-Fi, and universal service and access funds. In the case of Nigeria, that's the USPF fund. D, effectively manage spectrum resources. As you know, very soon we'll be going for a 5G auction. We're hoping that the price per slot is affordable to the operators that will bid for these spectrum so they can use the funds that they have to roll out the 5G networks as opposed to spending everything on spectrum. E, leverage innovative technologies, architectures, and business models. Very key here, as we know that we're in a digital economy era. Then F, adopt appropriate tax and fee structures. We should obviously remove multiple taxes. G, stimulate demand for broadband services. And those were the sort of the elements of the policy framework. I want to close there because I know that it's rather good to have a discussion, but I wanted to just end by saying there's key things that we've also found is that the policy, i.e. the Nigerian broadband policy of 2020-25 is a great policy. It has 55 recommendations. Quite a number of those focuses on infrastructure. And one of the areas of infrastructure highlighted on the fact that we, in Nigeria, for instance, and I think this might be relevant to other countries around Africa, is that we need a true wholesale fiber network, a true wholesale fiber network, which will remove the middle mile fortress that we see and removes duplication. Because in the case of Nigeria, we have a gap at the moment that represents about 75 to 80,000 kilometers of fiber, which should be non-overlapping on the current 54,000 that we currently have, which is overlapping and duplicative. Thank you very much for listening. Back to you, Remy.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Teniola, for that presentation. Thank you once again. I'm sure we listened very well. He ended up coming or giving us some outlines, including how we can actually leverage infrastructures available, business processes, and adapting to appropriate taxing. One interesting thing he also said is about the broadband policy that has 5 recommendations. And highlight of it that we need a true wholesale fiber network. So I thank you again, Mr. Toniola, for the presentation. I will ask, since Ronke was first to join, I think it would be nice to also offer her the opportunity to say something first before my friend Wole, while we also expect that Emeka will equally join us. So Ronke, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I don't have much to say. The first thing I'd like to say is that I'd like to commend the government. The draft National Broadband Policy Plan actually does a lot to cover quite a number of gaps in terms of infrastructure. I do like the fact that they actually made sure that there was proper engagement with key stakeholders within the industry. There's absolutely no way you can go forward without that. And I commend that. There are 5 things I just want to mention with regard to that. The fact that, number 1, our infrastructure has been made and is being made critical national infrastructure, I think is good. I'm going to mention a few points later. This is the physical infrastructure. It's good, and it needs to continue that way. With regard to access to federal rights of way and facilities that will help to propel broadband rollout, I think that needs to also continue. The fact that you have the railway lines, water, whatever the infrastructure, electricity lines, whatever we can use to ensure that we're able to roll out infrastructure, broadband infrastructure needs to be used, and where it is owned by public resources, I think that is necessary. With regard to what I would call open access frameworks, my position would be that I think it is important, particularly where such arrangements involve too many government entities. There might be too much complexity, and there might be too much nationalization, which might impede growth, impede progress. In my own opinion, there needs to be competition is healthy within our ecosystem, and anything that can help to promote that healthy competition and avoid and ensure that there is what I would call due cooperation between players, I would commend. And my perspective, I think that ensuring that all operators have an equal opportunity to access infrastructure, I think is also very key. Obviously, I just want to also mention the fact that we have submarine cable systems landing in Nigeria is good. It would be good, as has been proposed in the plan, to have a requisite regulatory overview. I think that is important because it will help to streamline the whole cable landing systems. It will help us also to address points of failure within the ecosystem. Also to mention 2 points. Number 1, we need to also look at 2 things. The universal service funds that we have need to be properly reviewed in a way to ensure an effective and efficient rollout in underserved areas. I think that is key. That is so key. The second thing that I would like to say is that in view of what I've mentioned earlier, in terms of promoting competition, it is important that we're able to continue to promote infrastructure sharing within our ecosystem, voluntary infrastructure sharing within our ecosystem. And I think that in itself will help us go a long way in terms of what we need to do. I will stop there for the meantime.
Thank you, Ronke, for that contribution. I would like to also now invite Wole to make the first mark concerning a structure, and before we go into elaborate the question. Wole, please.
Thank you, Remy. I think I'll just tee off from the comments that some of the comments that Ronke has opened with. When we're talking about infrastructure, we need to look at, okay, what are the enabling factors? What will enable this thing happen? From first and foremost, of course, she's mentioned the issue of maybe regulation and co. Some of the key regulations that will support infrastructure deployment. We've been talking about them, they've been identified, but we haven't really closed them. The minister came on now and talked about the CNI again. I left Airtel maybe 4 years ago. Even from Airtel, we've been talking about this critical national infrastructure bill, for years. Now that we have a dynamic minister, we also have the opportunity of this, I'll call it this pandemic that has accelerated digital transformation all over the world. I think if we do not use this opportunity to close regulatory issues like that, we will continue to beg the question. People are deploying infrastructure and it's being destroyed. The way, we already have a security challenge, but outside security challenge, you have people willfully preventing legitimate businesses from operating. So we need to at least give regulatory and legal cover to people who are putting money in here. I think that is one. Then the right of way, implementation of inside the National Broadband Plan, very good plan, just as Ronke has mentioned. We're in the implementation stage. We still have state governments, that probably don't even see the big picture. A few states, yes, they've caught on. We should have uniform implementation. This should be a no-brainer, We should have uniform implementation of the right of way. Things around permits, environmental impact assessment. These guys sit outside the system because, when you're deploying infrastructure, you have to deal with lands, you have to deal with other parastatals that are outside the core telecom framework. And we've talked about having one uniform permit to take out digital communications out of all these funny things. Have one place where you have a permit and it's done. If you are running a pan-Nigerian operation across 36 states, you have to talk to 36 different, state people, pay different taxes here and there. It's difficult, and it's unnecessarily difficult. People are dealing with it today, but it shouldn't be. We're talking about ease of doing business. We need to get that. I think that's one thing I would like us to cover. Then, before we talk, we've not even talked about the capital. These are capital-intensive projects. Infrastructure is not for boys. It's for men. Apologies, women. Let me put it that way. Okay. You know what we're facing with Forex. We're talking about long-term liabilities, long-term equity. So people, there's capital competition all over the world. People are looking for where to deploy capital. Nigeria also has to position itself. Outside the normal, we have a large population, it's a great market. We need to add some other sweeteners. That is a nice place to do business, become a hub. We need to be more strategic about putting the vast telecom professional, expertise that we have all over the world. I was blown away today when I saw that lady, Nena, from the internet, So Nigerians are doing great things all over the place. How can we not be leading at least in West Africa when we're talking about hubs for telecoms? We have all these funny policy flip-flops. We're signing one thing, we're banning big players. We're not coordinated. So I think for me, those are my opening remarks, and we need to just pick one or two things and get them done. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Wole, for that insight. You actually have on it from the point of view that we need to do more our regulations. We need to close all the necessary fiscal national infrastructure that we need to close up on to boost investment. So thank you very much on that. Then I think you also made mention of centralizing permits for investors. That was also boost what the industry is trying to do. Moving forward, thank God you also participated in the session that one of the things that actually came up in the connectivity, that takes me to the fact that how do we get meaningful connectivity?
Sorry, Remy.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay. I say, how do we get a meaningful connectivity in Nigeria, looking at the state of our current infrastructure? Anyone can answer that, but I would like to start with Tenny on that. Hello, Tenny.
Yeah, can you repeat that? It's again, your voice is very low or muffled.
Okay.
I don't know what it is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Whatever you're doing, just keep it that way. Yeah, thanks.
I say, how do we get a meaningful connectivity in Nigeria, looking at the state of our current infrastructure?
Okay, how do we get meaningful connectivity considering the current infrastructure? I mean, Ronke has alluded to some of the possibilities and that we should continue to ensure that there is increased collaborative dialogue. And I think that Wale, my brother, has also alluded to the fact that capacity issues reflects on the ability to access the Forex window. A Forex window that has some level of certainty is very difficult to plan at the moment with a budgetary plan that was put together on a strategy that was done possibly 3 years ago, let alone 5 years ago. So now that we have the reality that our currency is devalued, how do we get around innovative financing, for instance, to support the Nigerian broadband plan that has almost given a range of about 3.5 billion to 5 billion required to implement all the 55 recommendations that are in that plan? I mean, Ronke has stated that it's a good plan. Yeah, it's a great plan. Wale would agree with that. And I think the participants on this call also agree. But having a plan is one thing. We're very good at that, but it's the implementation. And I think the plan will just remain a plan if we don't get the correct funding. And then really, we need an enabling environment. Really, we've been saying these things until the cows come home. If government isn't able to position itself as an environment that attracts the right funding and it's patient capital, because as my brother Wale has highlighted, it's for the big boys and the big girls or women, then we're basically just going to have a document that will gather dust. I'm on the Broadband Implementation Steering Committee, and I realize that some of the actions that we are trying to take on board are, well, quite difficult if we don't see the requisite funding and if we don't get the political will to change things. It's great that we have a very dynamic honorable minister, but as he stated, a tree does not make a forest. He's leading and coordinating things, but he cannot do this on his own. So I'd like to see a lot more collaboration. I think A4AI, with the rural broadband policy framework, has put sort of the stakes in the ground, saying, look, this is what they've recognized works in the 65 countries that they operate in. And these are the things that we, as in Nigeria, for instance, since your question is directed to Nigeria, should adopt. And I think finally, what we need really is to review the the use it or lose it. Because with 5G, with wireless, with the fact that everyone depends on using data, congestion does become an issue and it reflects on capacity, but we need the right amount of bandwidth to be able to carry the huge amount of data that consumers are now dependent on. Otherwise, that becomes another problem. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tenny. Is there any of our panelists who would like to also add voice to that?
Yes, this is Oyeroke speaking.
Thank you, go ahead.
the thought that I'd like to put forward, there are about 2 or 3 things that I'd like to mention in this respect. The first thing I want to mention is that if we fail to get the foundation right with regards to infrastructure, there's absolutely nothing you will do to support and help everything else that gets built upon that infrastructure. The minister mentioned quite a number of things: vandalization, theft, ensuring due coverage, rural coverage. I think for me, one of the key things I would mention that we really need to move as an industry, it's something that is a condition. It is a precondition, and that's access to power, 24/7 power. Without it, it's very difficult to get the kind of connectivity we need to support a digital environment, an internet, the kind of internet and digital environment that we need in Nigeria. It is difficult. You know, Nigerians are very resilient. You know, if one thing doesn't work, another will work. But if we don't get those fundamentals right, it is a problem. And we need to make sure that we put this at the doorstep of government. They need to get it right with regard to power. For our industry and for where we need to go in terms of digital transformation and in terms of ensuring the kind of internet for all that we see. There's absolutely no way you can start if you haven't got the fundamentals right. The infrastructure we have, the physical infrastructure we have, is dependent and reliant on power. That needs to be sorted out. It really needs to be sorted out. And the second point that I would like to make is a point that was made by Wale in terms of making Nigeria a hub. As it is now, the ease of doing business in Nigeria is still stringent compared to other environments. We see on a daily basis people preferring to put their businesses in Ghana rather than Nigeria. And we pride ourselves as being the giants of Africa, leading, being at the cutting edge of technology, being at the cutting edge of everything to do with the digital ecosystem. However, ease of doing business, the certainty, the regulatory certainty that is needed, not just in the telecom sector, but everywhere, still is lacking. How long does it take? And there are lots of, I mean, I want to commend the work of the Ease of Doing Business unit of the Vice President's office and of the President's office. They're doing a fantastic job. We've seen a lot of movement going in terms of, say, for example, reform of the corporate, CAC. We've seen a lot of reform going on there, but there's so many other things that are thought of and considered whenever investment needs to come into the country. They look at whether it's easier for them to move into Nigeria, set up business, and continue that business. I mean, the state of the insecurities are also things that speak to, you know, that are a disincentive for investment. The whole ecosystem needs to be addressed, in my own opinion, in order to make Nigeria what I would call the preferred destination for investment and the preferred state, for investment. Without that, it's difficult to attract what we need in order to improve connectivity and our infrastructure in Nigeria. Let me stop there. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Ronke, for that insight. Before I get to Wale, there are some things Ronke said. One of the needs, very important need, which is the access to power. I would like you to probably look at it. There are also another thing if you are going to ask now, what to be added to that access to power to make sure that the connectivity we are looking for as internet in terms of connecting internet for all Nigerians that Wale, please.
Okay, thank you. Power on its own is a huge topic, and its impact on telecoms, we all know. From a CapEx perspective, power is about minimum 50% of telecom infrastructure deployment. If you're talking either data center or towers, apart from maybe the passive, maybe just fiber optic cables, but if you're talking about anything that really does active part of telecoms, you'll be talking about power. You'll be talking about also sustaining that power. Today, typically, we're using fossil fuels, diesel as the major uh, input, right, to generate energy because the grid is unreliable. Fine, we have all the discos and everything that's been happening there, good momentum, or rather, all motion, no movement. We really have not moved. Nothing has changed really in power. To distributed asset owners like infrastructure people. So we're left with having to sort out our own power. Power boils down to a cost. It doesn't really matter whether it's the government providing it or private people. It comes down to how much are you paying per kilowatt hour? When you're using diesel, is very expensive. Apart from the cost, with the change in policy around the world, both from the hyperscalers who are the drivers of technology and the superpowers, America and co, who are talking about climate change and curtailing, emissions. Diesel is no longer a preferred option for fueling, for generating power. So in the next 10 years, we're in 2021 now, many companies have announced complete pivoting away from fossil fuels. And we are still relying on this. So it means two things. It's going to become more difficult to even raise capital because most of the people who are giving you capital, they have all these EIA type of this type of environmental targets, tied to as conditions for you to assess those loans right from the World Bank, So we as a country, that comes again to this whole thing about being competitive as a country. We have to know that renewable is the future. What are we doing to help all those things? For you to generate 1 megawatt of renewable energy using solar system, maybe solar panels, you need a significant amount of land. Forget the land, let's say we have it. Do we have the enabling statutory framework to access that land easily, to keep it for a long time, to protect it? These are the things that people look at, because if you're going to deploy a solar farm in Katsina, you have to think about your workers. How do they get in there and get out when the place is overrun by armed opposition groups? How are you going to generate the same thing in the Niger Delta or in the East? So there are several things about country competitiveness that, as Ronke has mentioned, are beyond what we have control over. We need to continue to point these things out because investors look at country risk before they start looking at investment. What's the point of bringing money in if you can't take it out? Secondly, on power, we will also have to notice that, they just talked about 5G now. 5G will be more distribution, it will be more complex to deploy power solutions to all these small distributed nodes. The real issue there is not the technology, it's always the legal framework. Imagine if you want to put 50, 60 microcells along the Ikorodu Road. You have to talk to all local government kind of people who see it as a revenue, whatever. You have to talk about area boys, settling them, this and that. So those simple things have to be done. And it's all about, we all agree that digital investment is a transformative investment. It makes everything better for everyone. Not as if you leave the players, the MNOs on one side. People like MTN, anytime you need money, you go and shut down their site or you go and attack them. Everybody's after them. Then, you make things difficult. For me, it's still advocacy. There are good things like Teniola is doing, that this type of discussion, we need to come out with some specific targets, of course, and engage other people. The minister can't do it alone. I mean, there are 30-something ministers. He can speak all he wants. If they don't agree, they won't agree.
All right. Thank you very much, Wole, for that contribution. You also brought issue I wanted to raise with respect to, there was a time if people go for servicing, the community will block them and start asking for one price or the other. And then I was thinking that I want to find out from all of you, has anything changed with respect to that narration, where if maintenance is being carried out on an infrastructure, communities they are supporting the firm or the organization, or have they continued to ask for ransom and things like that? Ronke, can you take on that?
I can.
Hello?
I can.
Yeah.
I can.
Okay.
I don't see any changes. I'm so sorry. I wish I could say I can see some changes. I don't think so. It's not, at this time, it's not even the communities that's really an issue, but it's, I mean, communities welcome base stations to their locations. They do, because they know it'll bring in the communication access that they really need in order for their businesses, for their livelihoods, for everything they do. However, you still have the same set of people's area boys, you know, and at this time, what we see, particularly for, say, for example, our engineers moving around, security concerns continue to be an issue. It's probably even worse than it was before, if I may put it that way. So it's not even a matter of communities. There are still some communities that are very expressive, if I may put it that way, in a very nice way, you know, in terms of making demands. There are still expressive communities, and we handle them, you know, as best as we can, you know, the way we know how, through our community liaison officers. Even the NCC supports us in that respect. However, the security concerns, you know, where an engineer needs to go to a specific location to fix the network, that still remains. And unfortunately, as I said before, if the foundation is yet to be resolved, if the foundation is weak, anything else you build on top, I mean, you have digital platforms that have been built on top of what the physical infrastructure. In Nigeria, the limitations of the physical infrastructure will bleed into the digital, and how we're able to move that forward, in my own opinion. You know, it is a problem. It is a problem across the board. And until we address the foundation, I'm sorry, we're still going around in circles, unfortunately. I would love to have been able to say something different, you know, but this is not to say, and not to say that there are commendable actions that are being done continually by the NCC, continually by the minister, continually by all our various stakeholders to help resolve these problems. It is being done. A lot of work has been done and is continuing to be done. It's just that those fundamentals, unfortunately, remain the same. I mean, take, for example, Wole was talking about how much solar panels will you need to be able to put out in a specific location. The little rural infrastructure rollout that we've been able to do from an MTN perspective, to using solar power to support base stations, you find that the batteries, you know, you have the vandalization aspects of it still there. It's been there since we started operations. It's still there. This is how many years down the line? Over 20 years, you know, and it's so sad that it's still, you know, it's there. I wish we could say something different. I really hope and wish we could say something different. you know,
All right.
you know.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Teniola, would you like to add some comments on that? Having been the president of ASCON in recent years, I'm sure your members must have been bringing reports of what's happening to their infrastructure at some of our community. Over to you, sir.
Yes, thanks for that question. And I think Ronke alluded to some of the issues, and so did Wale, my brother. You are right. A lot of our members, including the organization that MTN represents, that Ronke represents, which is MTN, have in the past addressed or tried to address some of these very sensitive issues. And I think what we're seeing now, in addition to the community issues, we see that some parts of government are also involved in extortion. So that extortionate tendency has come from the fact that they view telecoms as a cash cow that will always making money. So because that messaging and the good work that the Honorable Minister of Communication and Digital Economy is doing, plus NCC, maybe plus NIDA, and a few other security agents, it's been overridden by this negative messaging that telecoms is a cash cow, we should bleed the cow dry. And that's a big problem, because when it gets down to the community level, they don't see anything that suggests a buy-in for them. So for instance, if you take the optic fiber now is being cut on a daily basis, and actually there is a optic fiber maintenance industry. So it is as if that industry, they want it to grow, and the only way it can grow is by further vandalization. So you have this cycle of criminality that's been embedded in our system, and that criminality now hunts for fiber, and that's a seriously sad thing. So Ronke said it hasn't changed. Actually, it's got worse, my sister. It's got worse in Nigeria. It's now become systemic, and it's becoming a problem, because it's very rare to try and put in a line in your OPEX item to say that you're putting money aside to settle the boys or the girls, because with the increased level of poverty and the increased unemployment rates, it is very, very difficult now to protect equipment. I want to speak to the aspect that government has been trying. Government has recognized telecoms as a critical national infrastructure. Yes, we don't have an executive order, though it's being worked on by the AGF and the Office of the National Security Agents. But the thing is that there's a question thrown back at me at a previous forum when I was speaking at a workshop to sensitize the law enforcement, security, and military. They said, okay, Mr. Tenor, who's going to pay for this? Are your members prepared to pay, or the industry, are they prepared to pay for increased surveillance of your equipment? Now, that's a problem with that question, because it's almost an us versus them. They don't see that the equipment that the telecoms operators owns is actually part of the national development. They see it that it's owned by some private individuals who are making a serious amount of money, and therefore they also now want to charge or send a bill for extra protection of something that should be just as fundamental as electricity or water, etc. So we as an industry also have a challenge to send the right messaging so that it's inclusive and it's a whole of a society approach, because it's not just the community at that level that hasn't got buy-in, but it's also at the topmost level of the hierarchy of the country that is now seeing that telecommunications is just one other industry that they can extract a rent and extract the rent in the form of rent seeking. So that's my submission at the moment. Maybe one solution is maybe to get buy-in from the community, maybe create more community networks, but that's probably is another discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Teniola, for that contribution. And that also takes me to the recent developments in the country, whereby infrastructures have been shut down. How do we see this affecting the growth, the little growth we have made, and how do you also think this will impact on the economy, especially the expansion of connectivity to our hinterland. I would like Wole to take a shot on that.
Okay. You know, as they say, if you are a hammer, every problem is a nail. Okay. There's this thinking in government circles that the problem of insecurity has to do with telecommunication companies, you know, because a kidnapper uses a telephone. Therefore, the telephone that is aiding, you know, the kidnapper. You know, technology makes a good man better and a bad man worse. We are not responsible. When I mean we, you know, people who sell SIM cards and go, MTN is not responsible for kidnappers, you know. It's just a communication device. You can use it to preach. You can also use it to spread insanity and fear. There are deeper issues, and I will just break it into 2 or 3 steps. Yes, telecoms can play a role, but like I was chatting offline with some of my colleagues in the industry, if you make a phone call anywhere in the world, if you leave a digital footprint, you use a card to pay for an item in the POS machine, we all understand how telecom works. The fact that you made a phone call is actually an invitation to be arrested. If anything, serious criminals would avoid using a telephone, you know, if we are serious about security. The moment you say you shut down the telecom, then the person does not even leave a digital footprint. How are you going to see them? So the first thing is that our security people, I think they are 2 or 3 steps behind when it comes to how to really conduct modern, you know, using technology to fight. You should actually see it as an advantage, you know, and use it to identify where the insurgents and the opposition groups are, and be able to use intelligence to smoke these people out, not shut it down. Because what you've done is that both the good and the bad, you shut them down. If I wanted to give you information that, oh, I've just seen 5 or 6 people hiding in this bush, I can't reach anyone. Which brings me to the second point. In every country around the world, there is a short number for emergencies. We know about 111, 999, you know, 911 in other countries. Nigeria has had a serious and escalating security issue for upward of 10 years now, with Boko Haram starting in late, I think, Yaradua's tenure. We still don't have a short code where people can just call and say, hey, I just saw some people with AK-47 on Admiralty. Oh, sorry. If you want telecoms to be part of the solution, the first thing you should do is make sure that, I mean, we have 100 million GSM phones, and each one is programmed with 112 as an emergency number from the factory. You know, is the NSA saying is not aware of that? You know, nowhere, nobody, they don't even have a simple call center. If you press 111, it goes to God knows where. In Lagos, somebody is handling it. Some places, the Federal Road Safety is here and there. So where are the cameras? If you go to any modern place and you shoot somebody, they shot an illustrious member of the society at Onitsha. Onitsha is one of the most important cities in Nigeria. He was shot and they left. They don't have a picture. They don't have even a remote camera looking at the junction. They say, okay, this is a car. They have nothing. We cannot operate like this. And the easiest thing to do, because you have MTN, Airtel, who are regulated, they have to obey. It's okay, shut down casino, shut down this, shut down that. They have to lose money, you know, because you can't do your job. Personally, I think that you are only creating, which is my final point, you are creating a situation where these people will buy Turaya phones now or do something else. After all, we hear that they are regional players. They will have people who have contacts all the way to the Middle East. You know, so if they come with more sophisticated gadgets. What are you going to do? You know? So while telecoms, yes, it may be tactical sometimes to jam frequencies or that, you know, but this approach that we are beginning to see, you know, it's dangerous trend, because they'll come to Lagos one day and say, you have to shut down Lagos, you have to shut down Anambra, because, so once people have a mobile phone, is that the only, what is the root cause of this issue? Is it the phone? You know? So I think that personally, I don't think it's good for the industry. We haven't seen the numbers yet, you know, but I'm very sure that if we have 3 states shut down, you know, for upwards of how many days, I know the kind of daily revenues that these people will be losing. That is just the income to the MNUs. What about the economic activity that is driven by this? You shut down the entire economy for a country that is just on the borderline of recession, you know? It does not augur well for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to have Ronke's comment on that, especially this shutdown, because I'm sure it affected MTN directly. Ronke, can you give us some takes on that?
Bottom line,
How
I
does it
think,
affect-
first and foremost, I think I want to hone in on what Wale has said. I totally agree with everything he has said. I don't have too much to add. The only thing I will say in this regard, from an MTN perspective, is that we remain compliant. If they want, it's true, if they want a shutdown to be done, we're licensees. That's the bottom line. We have no choice but to comply. Obviously, in terms of engagement, we do engage, you know, to ensure that it does not cause undue hardship and harm to our customers. But as things stand, we have no choice, we have to comply. We're mere licensees. I must say that in this regard, you know, I mean, we do have operations in a place like Afghanistan. And one of the things I've noted in Afghanistan is, with all the stuff that had been going on, you know, the fighting with the Taliban and whatever it is, they left both the government and the Taliban, whoever, they left our base stations intact because they recognized the importance of telecommunication services. In certain places, they will shut down the network at night. They did that. However, you know, when it comes to it, you know, certain things, infrastructure, they actually, you know, and I don't know whether that is what they've seen in that environment. That's what they've seen. And they have a similar terror insurgency type issue as Nigeria. In Nigeria, I totally agree with, you know, we need to look deeper. There are so many things that can be done to address the issue of insecurity in Nigeria. The telecoms part of it is just, in my own opinion, a tip of the iceberg. You know, there's a whole lot more that needs to be done, you know, from a governance perspective, sorts of things, you know, but it is a conversation that will need to be made by all stakeholders within the Nigerian eco, beyond our industry and beyond, you know, the internet environment. You know, a lot of discussion needs to take place. And until we start having conversations with ourselves, we're just going around in circles. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Ronke, for that response. Mr. Teniola, are you there?
Yes, I'm still with you.
Yes, thank you very much, sir, for being here. Looking at what we are discussing, you know that it will also affect internet access in those areas. How do you think we as a country should be addressing this issue of insecurity and shutdown of telecommunications infrastructure for security purposes? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. One of the things that Wale and my dear sister Ronke has addressed is the general concern that there is no communication in between the military, security, and law enforcement apparatus and other wider stakeholders. And I tend to agree with that, because under A4AI, we do not support any form of internet shutdown. So any form of internet shutdown goes against, in our view, the human rights of an individual to access the World Wide Web. So that's the first point I want to make. So we do not support shutting down of the internet. And I like the reference that my dear sister Ronke has alluded to in Afghanistan. And I'm sure Syria and other countries of extreme terrorism serve as examples. In those countries, they also have I would say, a working fixed line network. So there is a reliance on some form of communication using their fixed line network. In Nigeria, we are too skewed towards wireless technology. And like the smart bandits and terrorists will know that you do not need to just hold a mobile handset to communicate. You can use a satellite telephone, as my brother Wale has alluded to. So that's sort of punches the reason why you then turn off the mobile communication networks, because not only those that can give you information are locked off, but even certainly some of the military who depend on communication on these wireless mobile network operators and others will also lose communication. So it's almost like taking a shotgun to your foot and shooting both feet. The issue is that it would appear that the military apparatus are doing an operation, they're carrying out an exercise. We can't talk about national security issues anywhere, but they feel that what they're doing works. I think the challenge really is for us, not only as an industry, but as a wider body, to demonstrate that there are other ways to skin a cat. And I think some of the examples that Ronke has highlighted or alluded to in Afghanistan should be adopted, because how long do you still keep people in the dark? I mean, it's, it's not like you're going to have to keep Zamfara offline for another 2 or 3 weeks. They've been offline for 2 to 3 weeks now, which has an impact on our industry, because there is really a loss of revenue. And as my brother Wale has stated, we are barely out of recession. Our industry growth has slowed, though it's still growing. I think that the NIN SIM policy impacted our industry. This will be an additional impact. And I know that from the Honorable Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, he states that the federal government states that security is above economy. Remember that word? National security is much more of a higher priority than the economy. I think that we should maybe give another argument that national security is about still creating jobs, making sure that people are not fearful, that they can carry out their daily lives in a manner that doesn't create more disenfranchised citizens, especially the young ones, so we don't amplify the problem or start running rings around ourselves, as my dear sister has alluded to. So that's the position I find myself in, and hopefully the government will take on board other views as to how to address the security issue that has been ongoing for quite some time now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teniola. Before I move on, recently there was internet shutdown in Nigeria. Mr. Teniola. Hello, sir.
Yes, I'm with you.
Recently there was internet shutdown in Nigeria, and I know A4AI is concerned about access. Are you at your own end doing any outreach to the government or policymakers on this issue of internet shutdown? If you are, what hopes do we have?
Let me just clarify that position, Remy, because we got participants who would be very interested in that question that you've asked. We are aware that a social media platform was shut down. I hope you're alluding to that. Twitter, not the internet, was shut down.
Sorry, in Twitter.
Thank you very much, because I wanted to make sure that we're on the same page. The internet hasn't been shut down. It is a focus on social media. And I want to raise this issue around the social media bill. Yes, A4AI have put a position paper and submitted it to the National Assembly, strongly advising government to seriously reconsider the introduction of the social media bill. In the aspect of Twitter, we behind the scenes have reached out to Twitter ourselves, but obviously I can't disclose specifics. The issue around Twitter is a national security issue for those who are not aware. So it wasn't just about the president's deemed hate message that was posted. It goes way and beyond that. And I think that it also starts to demonstrate to us as citizens that governments are not too sure as to how to handle social media platforms that they deem to be operating in their jurisdictions. And I say that with all measured approach, because they're now seeking that Twitter opens up an office in Nigeria, should be taxed in Nigeria, because as you know, the digital tax is a big issue for many countries, especially in the OECD. Now, the issue that we have now is that there's an impasse. Twitter is a global technology organization registered in America, and obviously they have their own corporate governance. So what we have at the moment is that in terms of A4AI, we always advocate that technology companies, the big techs I like to call them, should respect the cultures and laws of countries where they operate in. But I think that there needs to be sensitization of their rules, and where there's conflicts with countries that they engage in, they should try and address it through the sensitization workshop. I can't speak more than that, but all I will say is that continued dialogue in between Nigeria and Twitter, the company, will result in a amicable resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll be moving on to Wole now. I would like him to address the issue of are there specific challenges you foresee in deploying infrastructure for the forthcoming 5G in Nigeria? If there are, can you share with us some of them?
Okay, thank you. Yes, the first challenge will be that I foresee is the cost. I've seen that it looks like the government has set a very ambitious target for the auction of the licenses. So that will limit the number of people that we want to take on that, because telecoms, I mean, there have been, in terms of an investment, return on investment, you know, things have not really gone as planned, you know, in the past couple of years. COVID not helping also, you know, they still have supply chain issues, which is the second issue, you know, rollout is going to be compromised. As you know, there's a massive supply chain issue now globally that's impacting everyone because of China, and locally because of Apapa Port, you know, and getting out of that place. You have to bring in every component. Third, from an infrastructure perspective, the infrastructure required, let's even just look at nodes required to support 5G. If you needed maybe 1,000 towers before, 1,000 cells, right? For 5G, you need maybe times 4, times 5, you know? We will need to also engage the municipality, the local government, the state government, about this whole thing about permits, you know? So this issue about permits, will become, it's going to slow down implementation because you need permits. If you are going to approach it from the way the law is today, take Lagos, for example, you have LASIMRA who wants you to come and register every single site. There has to be some engagement there about how that's going to happen because it's not going to make a good business case for anybody who's going to do that. Then you have fiber, okay? 5G is all about data speed and all that. You have the whole fiber. So this whole issue of right of way that has not been totally resolved is going to resurface again. How do you dig? You know, you have some states who have the dig once policy. You have to use one particular person, but how do you branch out? There's going to be so it's going to be challenging, more from the regulatory perspective that the statutory, the small municipalities that play a role here. That I see as a challenge going forward.
Okay,
before we
very
talk
quickly.
about empowering them and co.
Very quickly, Wole, is there anything your company, Lucy Telecom, is anticipating to bring in with this 5G that will be coming? Are we hopeful of any new product or something from your end?
Yes, so first and foremost, I mean, we've looked at the broadband plan, okay? One of the things, the way as you notice that Liquid is rebranded to Liquid Intelligent Technologies, that's because we see ourselves no longer as just a telecom company, you know, because all this technology, all